Let's welcome CJ's UK Director of Client Development, Owen Hancock.
Hi, everybody. How's it going? I hope you're all not too tired on, day 3 already of CJU. I know there are a couple of sore heads after the funk zone last night. Other people were obviously much more sensible, though, if they had presentations to do the next day. So I'm going to talk you through a bit about automation, AI, and their impact on affiliate. I'm going to try and keep it pretty light on the AI side of things, because I don't know how many of you attended Sri Sharma's session earlier on today, but he got pretty in-depth on that. So we're going to look more at automation and its impact on affiliate, which is hopefully going to be a little bit conceptual. So we'll start off by looking at why automation is good news for us, what it looks like in a conceptual sense, as I say, but also what it looks like in practice, right? And then we're going to finish off with a couple of things about how we should aim to automate things, what we should not be automating, and the things that keep us human as individuals and what's unique about us. And then hopefully we're going to talk about how we're going to save loads of time through automation, and we're going to finish off with 5 recommendations of what you should be doing with all of that time that you're saving through automating all of the tough and boring work that you're doing at the moment. So if we are diligent with time, I will move along. And I like to start with a big, bold statement normally, which hopefully makes you guys sit up and pay a little bit of attention. So what I want to talk about today is the idea that robots are going to take our jobs as affiliate marketers. Whether you're a publisher, whether you're an advertiser, even if, like me, you work at CJ, ultimately, machines are going to be able to do the vast majority of work that we do at the moment, and they're going to be able to do it better than us. But hopefully what I show you over the next half hour is the fact that that's actually good news for us, because there are certain things that make us unique, and by automating all of the stuff that we are not uniquely able to do, we're going to ultimately end up with more rewarding jobs, more satisfying jobs, more exciting jobs, and more entertaining jobs. So it's going to be good news. Embrace it. But before we get into that, you might already be asking yourself, who is Owen Hancock? I've never heard of him before, and why is he talking to me about this? So hopefully I'm going to tell you very quickly why I'm here and why I'm talking on this subject. So yeah, as we mentioned, my name's Owen Hancock. I'm the Director of Client Development in the UK, which means I work for CJ heading up all of our existing clients within the UK. So I see a lot of the strategies and the creativity that are coming out of those relationships. But also, as an interesting aside, I've worked for CJ for the last 6 years. I actually started out as an account manager, and I did a lot of those day-to-day tasks, those mundane tasks that exist within the affiliate world. So hopefully that gives me a little perspective as well on the types of things that we can look to automate. I think also it should, as well as looking at my background, show that I'm not a coder, I'm not a tech guru of any sort, and that's why this presentation is going to look at these things through a pretty practical mindset here and try and talk about it in terms of what we can actually do in reality over the next handful of years. This section about my background also says, look, I started out in economics, just like Parag that was talking at the keynote yesterday. I think it's a great grounding for digital marketing as a whole, because the whole point of economics is looking at large data sets and trying to understand how individuals behave. So I think that's a useful piece of context. The rest of the stuff there is to say, I didn't come directly to affiliate marketing, shall we say, and I had a couple of more esoteric jobs. And for the sake of clarity, I know James, when he saw this first, thought that being a Thatcher meant that I supported Margaret Thatcher. That's not the case. It means that I used to make roofs out of straw and reeds and stuff like that, which is a world away from affiliate marketing and the beautiful sunshine of Santa Barbara. Cool, and then this last bit at the end is just basically to say, Owen's pretty awesome, he knows what he's talking about, so we can skip through that. So, I started off by saying robots are going to take our jobs. I think it's useful to talk through a couple of illustrative examples of where I get that theory from. And nothing excites me more than starting with science fiction, right? Because science fiction is interesting because at that point in time, it's what that person really dreamed that technology would be able to do. And so if we look back at the 60s, at the Jetsons here, and the family jets and having a lovely video conference chat, that was, in their minds, one of the most futuristic things that you could do then. That was alongside hover cars, that was alongside robot maids, and all those things that we're still excited about. And I'm sure you're seeing the comparison that I'm going to draw already. But for most of us, I think video conferencing is not just something that we all do, but it's humdrum. This is part of our everyday life, and it has been part of our everyday life for a long time. So it's interesting to see the march of how technology is reshaping our workplace and the speed at which that's happening. I think it's also valuable to draw comparisons across history as well. So if we say robots are going to take our jobs, is there any background behind how that's happening already? So on the left, or on my left, on your right, there's a beautiful example here of a Liverpudlian wash house in the early 20th century. And so as I count it, there are, I believe, 37 women in this wash house in Liverpool working to keep the workforce's clothes clean and get them going out neat and tidy into the world. And over the course of the last 100 years, that industry has totally disappeared or been revolutionized by the fact that one machine that now sits in my living room, I can do my own washing at a press of a button. And even with the interconnectivity of objects and the Internet of Things, I now don't even need to be in my living room when I put on my washing. I can be in the car on the way home, or I can be out for the run thinking, well, maybe I do need some clean shirts for tomorrow. So look, there's been a vast march forward in a long space of time here, but there have been different elements which have gone quicker and slower within that. I'd like to think that this is a pretty clear-cut example of where technology is making our lives better. I can wash my clothes when I need to, when I want them, and I don't think if these lovely Liverpudlian ladies, if that's not too much of a tongue twister, would be too disheartened about not working in the damp and unpleasant conditions of industrial Britain in the wash houses. But if we look at a slightly more contentious example, I'd be interested to explore manufacturing specifically in the US. So again, I've got a photo here illustrating something from about 100 years ago when there are a lot of people working on car manufacturing lines. But if we even draw that example to a much more recent time period, and if we look over the last 15 years, there have been, as I understand it, 5.6 million job losses in the US in manufacturing trades. That's a big number, and that's really reshaping the economy and the purchasing power of how the US works, especially because a lot of those people have moved into retail, which is a low-paid area. But let's not get too caught up in the economics behind it, because we're here to talk about machines. I think one of the most interesting aspects of this comparison, though, is that of those 5.6 million job losses, where machines are now doing the jobs that humans used to do, 88% of those, so almost all of them, are due to productivity improvements. So it's not just machines are doing the jobs that humans used to do, but they're doing them more effectively. They're more advantageous than we are. And this slide here is one of the ones that I find most interesting, partially because it's demonstrating a lot of different things, and partially because it looks at the rate of time. So if we look at these bits down the bottom here, we're looking at manual labor. So if you look at the yellow part, for example, that's routine manual labor. That's the type of guys that were working on production lines. And we're looking at this over the course of the last 20 years or so. And so that was going along relatively steadily. And then around about 2006, 2005, you see some really notable drop-offs there. But what intrigues me as well is that you can see that orange line, the routine cognitive work, that's really dropping off as well in recent years. And that's what makes me excited, and that's what makes me say it's a good thing that we're able to automate things. It's because as that drops off on the right-hand side there, you can see this whole new explosion of the blue element of this chart, and that is non-routine cognitive work, which is basically just a fancy way of what I would call interesting work. That is the work that is engaging for us as individuals, that we want to be doing, that makes our jobs more stimulating, more rewarding, that help us develop and grow as people. So I think this represents a really good news story for affiliate marketers, because I'd like to think very few of us in this room are doing much routine manual labor. I hope you're not and your hands aren't too sore from it. But a lot of us, I think, are doing quite a bit of routine cognitive work, and that's the stuff that I think we're keen to avoid as we go forwards. So I've talked a lot already about using different expressions like robots, machines, automation. We referred to AI earlier on as well. And so for me, it's useful sometimes to take a little bit of a step backwards and to say, right, okay, what's the core concept that we're exploring here? So as I see it, the conceptual idea of automation is that you're taking a process that used to be done by a human and you're replacing it with a different control system to execute that. And that control system is normally a robot or a computer or AI or whatever you want to call it. But conceptual definitions aside, it's very handy. I don't know about you guys, but I learn best by exploring these topics in practice. So what we're going to spend the next handful of slides doing is looking at some of the advantages that machines have over humans and how I see that translating into the affiliate industry. And then we'll follow that up with a couple of actual case studies as well. So, are machines better than humans? Here we've enlisted the help of good old Will Smith and the robot from iRobot to help demonstrate this age-old battle of man versus machine. But we're going to set that battle in the modern affiliate marketing workspace. And because it's the modern workspace, they, of course, love affiliate marketing. I tried to get our creative team to put these guys in I love affiliate t-shirts, but apparently that was inappropriate. So text boxes it is. And then on the right-hand side here, we're going to show some of the advantages that machines have over humans. They don't get tired, they don't get sick, they don't get bored, they're more logical, they can spot pattern recognition much more easily, unlimited attention spans, infallible memories. They've got a lot of advantages over poor old Will Smith, who looks like he's going to get his ass kicked. And as maybe a final point for those of us who did go to the Funk Zone last night, machines don't get hungover either. I know in the UK there's a lot of productivity loss to that. Cool, but what does this translate into for us as affiliate marketers? Well, there are a lot of different advantages, but the three core ones that I wanted to pull out here are accuracy, speed, and personalization. So when I talk about accuracy, it's because of that pattern recognition, that infallible memory, that we're able to do a lot more. And it doesn't just mean getting reports on time and having the right sort of data in there. It doesn't mean changing over program terms, Mr. Little, without any errors in it, or it does mean that, but it means more than that as well. What it means is improved reach through things like APIs, through our product feeds as we actually enhance those, through content accuracy tools that we leverage. What we can do is we can put accurate information about different things out to more and more publisher websites about more and more different topic areas. And that's one of the things that will really be able to enhance our industry going forwards. When we talk about speed, again, it's not just about being able to do something immediately and the time that we save, although, as I'll go into later on, I think the time that we save is really valuable. But it's also about the volume of information that's available to us and how we choose to consume that information. So I will talk later on about a couple of examples of how we use automation in CJ. But the type of thing that I'm thinking about here is having the ability to make a real-time decision and to spot mistakes straight away and correct them, to spot opportunities straight away and maximize those. And then finally, this key element down the bottom, personalization. So I personally believe that humans are fantastic at personalization on a one-to-one level. If I talk to you as an individual and I know your background and I can see how you respond to me and what you're interested in, what you're not interested in, I can really tailor my communication style around that. But if I want to do that at scale, if I want to talk to 1 million people or 6 million people or 100 million people, there's no way that I can do that as a human. I need to leverage the machine and computer technology to be able to reach a grander scale and to be able to do real-time changes to what I'm trying to get in front of marketers. Cool, so let's look at a handful of these points in practice. I wanted to talk through absolutely shed loads of case studies, but because we're already nearly quarter of an hour in, I've tried to really pare it down. So apologies if I get overexcited about some of these. This is the one that I was alluding to a moment ago. The screenshot here is just to represent CJ's behind-the-scenes reporting, but this on the right is a list of all the different automated alerts, analyses, notifications that come through to client dev teams across CJ. And you might say, if you're an advertiser or a publisher, well, hey, that's great news for you guys, but why does that really matter for me? And like I was alluding to earlier on, the reason that it means something for everyone here is our ability to optimize quicker. So if you look at one of the examples on here, you can see there's a notification for major drop-off in publisher performance. So if I, as a CJ account manager, can know instantaneously If one of my publishers has just fallen through the floor, maybe they've put a broken tracking link in place, maybe we've got some misplaced creative or something like that. The sooner that I know that, the less commission that's lost to that publisher, the less advertiser that's lost to that, the less revenue that's lost to that advertiser. So it's a good thing all around, as well as the fact that, look, we're saving time in terms of our CJ staff as well. The next example here, I don't think many of you will be familiar with this publisher. Maybe one or two from the UK audience are. They're called Weather to Travel. They've got a really interesting background. They actually started out as a company designed to find locations for movie scouts. And there were movie scouts that needed solid sunshine for 2 weeks or something like that. And they said, right, here's the weather where you can find that within what you need. But it's not a fantastic affiliate proposition. It's not great for a wide array of consumers. So what they do now is they give out weather advice on where you're looking to go on vacation. So if I want 2 solid weeks of sunshine, I probably shouldn't be going down to the south coast of the UK, but maybe Santa Barbara is a better bet for me. But what they're doing that's interesting, or I find interesting within automation, is they are creating dynamic content articles based on the weather in that location at that point in time that you're looking at, and what that written content might be. So they're adjusting the nature of the activities that they're recommending. So if you know that it's going to be sunny in Santa Barbara, you say go down to the beach, take a cycle right along the coast, whatever else. If it's raining, which lo and behold does happen here sometimes, you can say let's go to the Museum of Art, let's find out some great places to go and eat on State Street or something of that. So it's an interesting setup there. But the advantage that they have is they want to work with as many different destinations as possible. So by leveraging automation, they vastly increase their reach. There's no way that you could write 10 different versions of that article for 4,000 different websites. So that's good news. The challenge, though, and one of the interesting limitations within automation is to say, in written content, can it really be inspiring, engaging? Can it really stimulate you to go and do those things? Or is it kind of like a filler piece that's useful for getting Google's unique content ratings high for your website and bringing in SEO, but doesn't necessarily compel people to go and change their behavior? And so one of the things that we'll look at a little bit more later on is the written language and how challenging that can be for automation and for machines. This example here is CJ's content accuracy tool. So I don't know if any of you guys have been to the discovery sessions that Seth's been running. I find this a super exciting tool for me personally because of my client dev background and the tasks that it is replacing is stuff that we used to do as AMs and AEs, and it's not the type of task that anyone enjoys doing, but it's also good news for everyone else in the industry. So the core concept behind what happens here is you put your correct configuration in and you say, I know within a certain publisher website, they'll demonstrate these pieces of information here. This is where the APR is. This is where the offer goes. This is what the expiry date is, et cetera, et cetera. And you say, this is my acceptable output for this. The APR is 4%. And then your bot goes through, it crawls the website, and it says, if the APR is supposed to be 4%, in reality it's showing us 5%, we've got a problem, it'll take a screenshot of that, it'll allow us to communicate out that issue immediately, and it'll allow us to get that addressed. If it's the right content in there, then happy days, we can all go home and make sure that we're convinced about what we're doing. And so I think this is good news for us here in two senses, right? One is that, again, it's increasing reach for us, like I was talking about earlier on. So if you've got humans doing this job, then maybe you've got time to check 20 sites in the morning and make sure they're all right. If you've got the content accuracy tool doing this job, then you can check 100 sites or 1,000 sites or even more than that. So you can have faith in the reliability of that information across a much wider array of different sites, and that means that you can work with more different people and expand your reach. I think it's also great news because of what I was alluding to earlier on, which is taking away CJ staff members' time from doing boring, banal, and to be frank, work that could be done by someone else to get more value out of CJ teams. We're here and we can provide the most value by offering guidance and strategy and creating new relationships rather than just purely doing a machine learning job. And then here are some of the other examples that I did want to talk about in depth, but sadly time doesn't permit for us. So the type of things on there that I wanted to run through were things like CJ's dynamic destinations, which is a machine learning setup to improve conversion rates, NMPI's Google product, Google shopping product, which links together product information and the double-click management platform. It means that they can do that all on a CPA basis. The deep link automator from CJ means accurate links at the click of a button. Things like voucher view, which I'm a big fan of, which is kind of similar to CJ's content accuracy tool, but it's more of a competitor focus to say, hey, what was that offer running at that point in time? Right. So if you listen to what I said over the course of those last handful of slides, it seems like Will Smith is going to get his ass absolutely handed to him by the machines, and so will we. But I don't think that's the case in the long term. And the reason that I don't think that that's the case is because, as I say, there are some fundamentally human qualities which I don't think will ever be attained by a computer. And those things are around empathy and communication and creativity and innovation. If any of you guys were here for that session that just ran previously to it, to this one, we spent a good 35 minutes, and there could have been a lot more debate after that, saying what are the ways that we can stretch beyond what we're doing in affiliate at the moment. And everything within there was reliant on humans looking beyond the task that was in front of them at the moment and thinking about how they could see the bigger picture and stretch beyond that. It also really intrigued me that when we were talking about the ways to get to creativity and that innovation, still a lot of it is based around human face-to-face contact as well. And even the communication falls within that piece to say, how do we explore together? How do we learn together? And how do we do something beyond what we're doing at the moment? So to ram that point home a little bit more, I have pulled out some examples of bad automation, or where I feel that people have tried to use automation beyond its suitable remit. This one here is talking about education or automation within education. It's a nice idea to have robot teachers. You see it a lot in sci-fi, right, where you can distinguish, hey, this is the right type of content that these people need to learn. Here's the acceptable answer. If you get it right, get a reward. If you get it wrong, get punished. But I think that piece about empathy and about communication is really hammered home in education, because there's something beyond knowledge retention. There's something about interpretation of knowledge. And there's also something about the way that you have an interpersonal relationship with the person that's trying to educate you on something. I don't just mean in a wider academic sense, even if we're talking about the core of an affiliate marketing idea. If you're there in front of me and you want me to understand and you want me to be able to get that proposition that's there, then I'm more inclined to be able to believe in that. And there'll always be a place, I think, for sales and for selling of ideas, which humans can do that machines can't do. This example here is, again, a little bit around communication and language, but this time in social media. So it's a nice idea to be able to expand your reach within social media by creating automated responses to anyone that mentions you on Twitter. But language is a complicated thing, and it's easy to get it wrong. So some of you guys might be able to read. A customer here has congratulated American Air on some perhaps slightly unflattering feedback that he's offering elsewhere. And then American Air have come back and said, oh, thanks for your support. We look forward to working with you and a bright future ahead. Obviously, it's a total fail on this front, and it's difficult because language is so nuanced. I'd also say humor is still pretty fundamental in social media as well, and humor is a human-based thing as well. And then this final image on this slide here is it's to really represent a whole heap of automation, which I think is bad, but I don't think is necessarily fundamentally outside of the reach of machines. This is to represent garbage in, garbage out, which is something my parents always taught me as a child because they were coders back in the 70s for IBM. And look, it's just saying, if we put in bad inputs, if we can't yet properly codify what our needs are within this set of automation, then we can't blame the output that's coming off the back of that. Cool. So hopefully now you're all pretty excited about automating things that are existing within your current life, and you're thinking a little bit about what can I do within my current role to save myself more time, to improve accuracy, et cetera, et cetera. So a couple of quick tips from me on this front. One is thinking about the types of tasks that are good to automate. It is those slow, those laborious, those repetitive tasks, but it's also things where you need more accuracy, more speed, more personalization behind it. Then, if we're looking at automation as a way to save time and to really increase the speed of what we're doing, look at existing tools that are already out there. If we're talking about some good examples, like content accuracy checking, like brand verity for checking paid search and whether that's correct or not, then leverage what's already there rather than building it out from scratch yourself, because then you're going to be able to do things quicker and move on sooner. And then finally, this last point is around the mindset that you take to automating tasks. So this is here because I see a lot of people, when they go to automate a task and they work with an automation team, saying basically, hey, this is your problem now, guys. And they say, this is what I want to achieve, go and work it out. And that, I don't think, is the best way to get to the end result here. If you're briefing something in, you need to be really diligent and understanding of what you're working with there yourself to be able to properly frame exactly what you're after and how that's going to have the biggest impact. Right. And so this is what I teased you with earlier on at the beginning. So hopefully we're all going to save loads of time, and we're going to be able to really think about what we do with that time that we save. So within that, I think the most important thing that we do here is look at strategy in more depth. Setting out where we want to be, where we want to go is fundamental to how we're successful in the future. And at the moment, it's all too often done in the affiliate sector, where that really drops down to the back of the priority list because there's something that's broken, because there's something that needs to happen now, there's something that needs to change. So take the time to do that. With decisions, we're going to have a lot more information available at our fingertips, but it's important that we take the time to make proper and sensible decisions there. Also, as a word of warning, it's important that you don't lose ownership of those decisions. I see a lot within our industry already, and I've done entire presentations about big data, the paralysis that can come from having too much information at your fingertips. And ultimately, you need to take ownership of those decisions, and you need to not just procrastinate by saying, I need more and more context before I'm willing to take a chance. And that's one of the things that we explored a lot in some of the previous sessions, right? Like, you've got to be willing to take a chance. And that feeds into the next point really nicely. We're going to be keen to innovate more. We need to stretch beyond what we're doing in affiliate today and really think about what affiliate has the potential to do tomorrow or next year or in 10 years' time or 20 years' time. The last 2 points on here I find kind of interesting, and they're a little bit separate from those two above. Work less and learn more. Work less in terms of, look, it's easy to fill up your day with junk tasks. It's easy to save a load of time and then find another way to do the same stuff, do the same things, but do it slower. Let's just use this as an opportunity to go home and see our families, see our friends, see our pets, whoever else. There's some really great studies coming out of the OEDC at the moment about countries which are working with restructured working weeks like Sweden, and it's very eminently attainable to reduce the level of work that you put in, but to increase the productivity that you have as a nation. And so I think that's a compelling one for us to strive for over the course of the next 10, 20 years. And then this final point, learn more. So I think if we take away anything from the fact that automation is changing our workplaces, it's that the skills that we possess that are valuable today might not be the skills that are valuable in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, 15 years' time. And we need to stay relevant. So we don't know necessarily what the skills that are going to be important in 15 years' time are, but what we can do at the moment is take the time to make sure that we continually educate ourselves and that we remember how to keep learning rather than becoming stagnant in the work that we do and becoming slightly more obsolete, like some of those careers that we discussed at the beginning of the presentation. So hopefully I am roughly on time. I think I am. And we're going to finish up with just a handful of takeaways here. So to hit these points home, be excited about the future. We're going to have better jobs. Leverage the technology that's already out there. Don't build everything from scratch, but still think about what you can automate and how that can reshape the work that you're doing. Think about the new doors that are open to you by that technology and that additional reach and accuracy that we're talking about. And then finally, think about how you spend your time and what you're going to do instead of doing all of that mundane cognitive work. I think that is us, roughly on time. Do we have any questions either in the room or from the app? Go for it.
In terms of CJ and automation, so you mentioned some kind of reports and some of the new tools you've got. Is there anything else you can share? So I know some networks look at creating kind of chat bots to help in terms of answer advertiser questions. Some are looking at being able to automatically approve publishers based upon their existing behavior. Like, what's CJ working on that you can share behind the scenes that's going to make advertisers and publishers' lives easier and quicker, I guess?
I think that's a great question, James. So, look, there's a lot of different things that we're looking at there, and things like the accept declines process is very much in our mindset as well. But I would call out the thing that I think will have the biggest impact over the coming years is what we're doing around helping to automate out the impact of optimization with publishers. So one of the biggest things that we all spend our day jobs doing is starting out new campaigns, booking placements, saying if we increase this CPA, if we book out that tenancy, how much revenue is actually going to come off the back of it. And we're getting really in depth in how we're able to design that and how sophisticated we can. And so I think when we release that, that's going to allow us to invest existing advertiser budgets a lot more effectively. But I think it will also allow publishers to really demonstrate their value a lot quicker. And it means that we should be able to get more optimizations in place.
I do think we are out of time. I think if there are other questions, you'll be around, Owen?
Well, look, I'm happy to stay on if we're not getting kicked out. But if there are any other questions, go on. Let's do one more.
Oh, I did have a question. Okay, good. So, Owen, if you were gonna automate 3 things, like what would you say the 3 most important things are to automate in terms of your publisher-advertiser relationships on a day-to-day level?
Oh, that sounds like 3 questions, doesn't it?
It is 3. Go on.
I guess that free flow of information is what I would put at the start of that list. Making sure that you have a continual check-in on performance, especially with optimizations that you're making to see if you are genuinely seeing that impact. I think we talk a lot about the existing communication between how we're working. There's no simple answer to just get that all swept up and done in a quick automated way. But I think there's a lot more that we can do to enhance that and to mean that make sure that when we are having face-to-face conversations, we can be as effective as possible at that moment in time. So the types of things like I was talking about in answer to James' question about being able to demonstrate the impact behind what we do next. I think if you have that data with you in advance when you come to those conversations, you're able to move to a more effective result a lot quicker. And then third one, go home more often. Like once you've saved a load of time, go out for drinks and get to know people as individuals. Cool. All right. In that case, I think we genuinely are out of time. But thank you for your questions, guys, and for sticking with us in the afternoon. And yeah, please do use the app for rating and letting us know how we did. Cheers.